Alright, folks, strap in because we're about to dive into the love story that absolutely, positively should not work, but somehow works like gangbusters. I'm talking about Scott Pilgrim versus the World, a movie that is basically the fever dream of an over-caffeinated gamer who accidentally fell into a bin of comic books while listening to indie rock and then woke up to find Michael Cera was there, too. And no, don't get me wrong. This isn't your typical romantic comedy where two people share a cupcake, stare longingly at each other, and ride off into the sunset on a tandem bike. Hell no. This is a love story with pixelated uppercuts, bass guitar battles, and more trauma than Batman's childhood. Now let's be clear, Scott Pilgrim is about as far from your traditional leading man as humanly possible. I mean, look at him. He's a 23-year-old guy who plays bass in a garage band called Sex Bob-omb, which, let's be real, is a name that would get booed off any Battle of the Band stage, even in a high school gym. He lives in a dingy apartment with his gay roommate Wallace, who is hands down the best character in the movie. Fight me. And his emotional maturity is roughly on par with a potato that's been left out in the sun for a week. This guy is a train wreck. He's that guy. You know the one. The guy who drifts through life like he's on autopilot, a walking pile of anxiety and bad decisions, who treats relationships like they're one long side quest in some Zelda knockoff. You could put his emotional growth on a bar graph, and it'd be flatter than a pancake that got run over by the Batmobile. But here's the kicker. We're supposed to root for this guy. This emotionally constipated man-child with all the self-awareness of a potato chip. But then, enter Ramona Flowers. This indie rock pixie goddess on rollerblades with ever-changing hair who just oozes that I'm too cool for this world vibe. She's like every high school crush you had rolled into one. But with a sprinkle of emotional damage and a dash of sass. And Scott, he's smitten. Absolutely floored by her. And who wouldn't be? Ramona is a freaking mystery wrapped in a riddle, tied up in a pair of boots that probably cost more than Scott's entire apartment. But here's the thing, she's not just some manic pixie dream girl here to magically fix Scott's life. No, no, no. Ramona's got her own baggage. She's got 7 evil exes. 7! That's more emotional wreckage than an episode of The Bachelor. And here's where it gets absolutely bonkers, right? Scott's not just falling in love with Ramona. Oh, no. In order to be with her, he's got to fight. And I mean fight her 7 evil exes. And we're not talking about, like, awkward run-ins at Whole Foods. We're talking about video game boss battles. Dragon Ball Z-style explosions. People flying through walls. One ex is literally a vegan psychic because, apparently, that's a thing in this world. And it is awesome. It's like someone sat down and said, what if we took every insane video game mechanic and turned it into a metaphor for dating? And here's where it gets deep, folks. And yes, I'm going there. Because while this movie looks like it was designed by someone who drank a Red Bull while binging old NES games, it's actually saying something real about relationships. The 7 evil exes? They're not just mini-bosses. Scott has to punch out to level up. They're literal baggage. They represent Ramona's past, her emotional scars, her bad decisions, her regrets, and Scott's got to fight his way through that if he wants to be with her. He's not just punching douchebags with flame katanas. He's dealing with the fact that every relationship comes with baggage. But don't you dare think this is a one-way street. Because Scott Pilgrim, our lovable, clueless wreck of a protagonist, has his own crap to work through. He's been dating a high schooler. People. And I'm not just talking about a we're emotionally close kind of dating. He's literally playing house with this 17-year-old while simultaneously trying to win Ramona's heart. He's a mess! He's got his own emotional wreckage to sift through. His selfishness, his immaturity, his indecision. He's not some shining knight on a white horse, rescuing the damsel in distress. He's a guy who's floundering his way through relationships, hurting people left and right, and not even realizing it. And that's what makes him real. He's a screw-up, but he's our screw-up. And that's the beauty of it, right? Love is messy. It's not just one long sunset-filled montage where you share a milkshake and make hard eyes at each other for eternity. It's complicated. It's full of exes and baggage and dumb mistakes and growing up. You don't just get the girl by showing up with flowers and a quirky mixtape. Sometimes you have to punch your past in the face. Literally. Sometimes you have to look at your own reflection and realize, oh crap, I'm the villain in my own story. And let's not forget the absolute absurdity of these fights. I mean, come on. Vegan psychic powers? Bass guitar duels? People exploding into coins like they're in a goddamn Mario game? This movie takes everything you love about video games and cranks it up to 11. It's like Michael Bay had a baby with a Super Nintendo and then gave it to Edgar Wright to babysit. The fight scenes alone are worth the price of admission. It's pure, uncut nerd candy. But at the heart of it, beneath all the pixelated explosions and anime-inspired fight choreography, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is a story about growing up, about realizing that love isn't a trophy you win by defeating all the bad guys. It's about accepting someone's past, baggage, bad decisions, all of it, and deciding that it's worth fighting for. And not just fighting, but fighting better. By the end of the movie, Scott's not just battling Ramona's exes. He's battling his own immaturity, his selfishness, his fear of growing up. He's fighting himself. And you know what? That's what makes Scott Pilgrim such a damn good love story. It's real, it's honest, it's ridiculous, sure, but it doesn't sugarcoat the hard stuff. It tells you straight up that relationships are work. That sometimes, to be with someone, you've got to fight, not just external forces, but your own internal demons. And the best part? It's fun as hell. You're sitting there, watching a guy with no life plan transform into a goddamn Street Fighter champion, while learning the most basic lesson of all, that love is worth fighting for. So in the end, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World isn't just some goofy comic book video game mashup. It's a story about growing the hell up, accepting that love is messy, and learning to be better. And yeah, maybe that involves drop-kicking a dude into a pile of coins, but that's just a bonus.